Marissa Devault had an initial story. Just like Jodi Arias, when she was being questioned by police, had a first story, and then she was confronted with some evidence, and it didn't really add up, so then she had another story. Same thing with Marissa Devault. Her first story didn't really, jive with the evidence at the scene as described by one of the investigators.
His head was on this nightstand, propped up on this side, or resting against. Table would be right here, and the hammer would be just left of this doorway. There's the small table or desk, whatever you'd like to label that as. There's the hammer that I told you that I focused my camera towards.
Now the hammer as it's depicted in this photograph, is that how you found it when you entered that room?
Yes.
And joining me and Mike Brooks here in the evidence room, Joseph Scott Morgan, Distinguished Scholar of Applied Forensics at Jacksonville State University. Great to have you aboard.
Good to be here.
All right, this is the room. This is the actual display that they showed inside the courtroom. And let me just show everyone what everything is here. This is the bed area. This is the bathroom over here in this area. And this is the desk area, okay? So now let's take a little closer look here. And let's begin by going inside the room and take a look at this picture. And Joseph, tell me, this is where the body was allegedly found, right?
Right.
And over here is another important area where the hammer and some blood on the wall is, Joseph.
Yeah, in this area that you've indicated right here, this large circle, we have the hammer resting on the table here, immediately adjacent or inferior to this blood swatch that's right here on the wall, on the door facing. One of the problems with this is that we have to try to understand where this blood came from. Is this transfer blood? Is this something where she was wiping her hands off and it sprayed on there? This, however, is not consistent with what we would commonly refer to as medium velocity blood spatter. It's certainly not high velocity blood spatter.
All right, so let's take a closer look at that because we can do that. Let's zoom in now on that area that we were talking about. And again, down here, ladies and gentlemen, this is the hammer and then those blood spatters that we were talking about there. So taking a closer look here, Joseph, what do you see?
What I see right here is that we have 3 areas of blood contact. So I think that these may be some kind of passive trace that's left behind. We also have a blood droplet down here that is in fact passive, as if the hammer is being held above. Just think if you have a bloody nose and the blood is being pulled down toward the surface, it lands in this position. I think that this is not directly connected with the attack itself, though.
Okay, now there's blood on the hammer itself. Is that going to tell you anything about how this killing took place?
Oh, absolutely. First off, for connectivity purposes, if this is his blood, the victim's blood, and it can be tight, it's going to give us an idea that this weapon has in fact been utilized to bring about his death. That's the first thing. And then secondly, when we get into the area with the head of the hammer, we can begin to match up injuries that this gentleman sustained on the surface of his scalp and his skull. As of yet, they haven't released the autopsy report yet.
Right. I know, Mike, you're interested in
because,
this.
I've always said there's basically 2 weapons. You've got one here for striking, blunt force trauma, but over here, I mean, you could actually have some penetration inside the skull because most of from what we were hearing without seeing a report, most of the damage was to the side of his cheek and his temple area.
Right. And one other thing I'd like to point out about the hammer is that we've got both the claw end and the blunt end, but let's don't forget, we have an edge here. This is going to be clearly demarcated in any kind of injuries that we might see in the autopsy, and the forensic pathologist will report that out. We'll offer that up in the autopsy report.
In her statement, too, whether she was telling the truth or not, she said she was using both hands. So she could have struck him a number of different ways while he was lying there on the bed.
Let's go in and take a look at some more of the evidence. And this I find really significant because here you're talking about a lot of blood spatter. This part we believe is the sort of the ceiling that's angled out. And then you go down here and this is the wall. What are you seeing?
And here's a bedpost, headboard, so the body would have been over in this area.
Body's over in that area. So what does this spatter tell you, Joseph?
Right, well, what it's telling me is that obviously this is a focal area where an attack took place. What we're looking at here is we have at least by virtue of the nature of this photograph and the quality of it, what I can ascertain from this is that this area all the way through here is medium velocity blood spatter. Now, considering
Medium velocity blood spatter, what does that mean? How do you get that?
a medium velocity would be consistent with, say, someone wielding a blunt object like a hammer, a baseball bat, this sort of thing.
Gotcha.
You're not generally going to generate medium velocity, say, for instance, with a punch that's thrown. High velocity, of course, you're talking about firearms. So this indicates that someone would have a tremendous amount of leverage in order to generate this kind of action. Now, what we also have is blood up here in the superior area. Keep in mind at home that the ceiling is beginning to pitch. This is a vaulted ceiling. This is consistent potentially with her raising the hammer, throwing blood up on the ceiling. This is what's
So there's blood on the hammer as you go back. As you go back this way, it flies off the back of the hammer.
It's cast off.
Okay, let's take a look now. Next picture. This is the lamp, which is right next to the bed. Let me just show everybody where that is one more time so you know. We're looking right over here. This is the lamp that we're looking at, the bed, and this is where he was killed right here. So let's again get closer now to that. What does that blood spatter tell you there, Joseph?
Well, one of the things that we want to look at, you can always determine what direction the blood is traveling by where the point is, what direction. In this case, it's traveling in this direction. It could be that she is slinging the hammer up like this. Upon impact, the blood is discharging through the air and showering this entire area.
The shape of the blood spatter itself will tell you.
Yes.
The shape, the point, and the thickness of the blood there. So that's what it looks like. Maybe as she came down to him, it came off of the body up onto this lamp.
Now, her initial story was that she was being attacked, right?
Right.
But they found blood on her. I want you to take a listen to what the prosecutor said in her opening statement and then get your comment.
Mr. McGibbons looked at the defendant's shirt. He noticed something interesting. He saw that there was a pattern of blood on her shoulder and on her back. According to Mr. McGibbons, it's his opinion that this is the type of pattern that would be made should blood be coming off a swinging hammer and coming to a rest. When Mr. McGibbons noticed that, he immediately thought the defendant couldn't have been on her back as she claimed during the assault, because in fact there was blood on her back, which wouldn't have been able to be there. He also noticed the directionality of the blood spatter. And based on what he saw, it was his opinion that it was the defendant who was swinging the hammer that night.
Joseph Scott Morgan, blood on her back. How did it get there?
If the defense is selling it, I ain't buying it. What you have going on is that the hammer is making contact as she raises the hammer up. Again, we're back to this issue of cast off.